All right, let's dive right into one of the most vital functions in any business that runs on SAP, credit management. This is really where the ambition of the sales team meets the hard reality of finance. Getting this right is absolutely key to protecting the company's bottom line. It really all comes down to this one simple but incredibly important question. Every single sale you make has some risk baked into it. So the real question is, how do you manage that risk in a smart way? Well, SAP gives us a really powerful automated answer. And over the next few minutes, we're going to break down exactly how it all works. I want you to think of credit management as a smart, automated gatekeeper, right? Before any order can get through that gate and actually turn into a shipment, the system steps in. It checks if the customer is in good shape financially. It's a real balancing act. You gotta let the good sales fly through while slamming the gate shut on potential bad debt that could cost you a fortune.
So here's our game plan. We're going to start with the basics. Then we'll take a look at the classic system in ECC, and after that, we'll jump into the new mandatory system in S/4HANA. From there, we'll follow a transaction from beginning to end, and then wrap it all up with some real pro-level troubleshooting tips that are going to save you a ton of headaches.
Okay, let's kick off with Section 1, the classic system. Now, you might be thinking, why are we even talking about the old stuff? Well, trust me, understanding this foundation is so important, whether you're still working on an old ECC system or you're in the middle of a big move to S/4HANA.
So the absolute heart of the classic system is this thing called automatic credit control. The best way to think of it is as the brain. It's the configuration area where you set up all the rules. It's the logic that decides, okay, approve this one. Send a warning on that one. Or, nope, block this order right now, all based on how risky that customer is.
Now this is where it gets interesting, because there are two main flavors of these checks. First, you've got the static check, which is kind of like a blunt instrument. It just adds up everything, every open order, every delivery. So it might block an order today for something that's not even supposed to ship for 6 months. But then you have the dynamic check, which is so much smarter. It uses a time horizon, so it only looks at orders within, say, the next 2 months. This gives you a much more realistic and useful picture of a customer's real credit situation.
And that brings us to Section 2, the modern system. As we all move into the S/4HANA world, this isn't some optional, nice-to-have upgrade. Credit management now moves to a whole new module called Financial Supply Chain Management, or FSCM. And guess what? You have to use it. It's mandatory.
And this is a big one. For anyone who's been in the SAP world for years, the classic go-to transaction for managing a customer's credit, FD32, is gone. Poof, it's obsolete. This is a huge signal that the entire approach to this process has fundamentally changed.
Okay, this slide right here is your translation key, your Rosetta Stone for the new world. What we used to call the customer master is now the business partner. The credit control area? That's now a credit segment. And those old, rigid, static, and dynamic checks, they've been replaced by this incredibly powerful and flexible formula-based rule engine. It's a perfect illustration of the move away from fixed structures to something way more dynamic.
So, you might be asking, why all the change? Well, it's all about power and flexibility. In S/4HANA, you can literally build formulas that automatically figure out a customer's credit limit based on their payment history, or you can even pull in their external credit rating. The data is cleaner, the integration is way tighter, the whole thing is just so much smarter.
Okay, so we've looked at the old system and the new system, but how does this stuff actually work in the real world? Let's follow a transaction and trace the life cycle of a credit check, from the second an order gets created.
So, it all kicks off with the sales order. That's the first gate. But look closely at step 2. The system checks again when you create the delivery. Now, why would it do that? Because things change. In the time between the order and the shipment, that customer might have missed a big payment. This recheck is a super important safety net. After that, you can see the exposure value just kind of shifts buckets from delivery to billing, but it only gets cleared, for real, when that cash actually hits your bank account.
All right, now for the part that can make you an absolute hero on your project. Let's talk troubleshooting. These are the kind of real-world problems that, I promise you, you are going to run into sooner or later.
This is the classic phone call you get on a Monday morning. The credit manager is totally frustrated. They're saying, hey, the customer paid their overdue bill. Why is their new order still blocked? It's a super common and really confusing problem. And here is the magic wand. The problem, almost every time, is that the summary data that holds the credit exposure has gotten out of sync with the actual invoices and orders. It's just a data glitch. In the old ECC world, you run a report called RVKRED77 to fix it. In S4HANA, the new version is UKM_commitments_rebuild. These reports basically clean everything up and get the numbers back in line with reality.
Okay, here's another huge one. An order gets blocked. So you call the credit department, they agree to raise the customer's limit, and they go update the system. But the order is still blocked. Why? Well, here's the crucial point you have to remember. The system does not automatically go back and recheck old, blocked documents just because you changed the master data.
The fix requires a specific action. You have to use transaction VKM3. Think of this as the credit manager's command center for looking at all blocked orders. When they go in there, select that blocked order, and click Release, that's what tells the system to perform a brand new credit check against the new, higher limit. And if it passes, boom, the block is gone.
So, let's do a quick recap of the most important takeaways. Remember, credit management is your financial gatekeeper. The classic ECC system is all about that choice between static and dynamic checks. S4HANA's FSCM is the powerful new world, and it's mandatory. Don't forget, the credit check happens twice, at the order and at the delivery. And now, you have the two most important tools for your toolkit, the rebuild reports to fix broken data, and VKM3 to get those blocked orders moving again.
And let's end with this thought. This question you should ask yourself. Knowing how to type in a transaction code is one thing, but truly understanding the why behind the system, why it blocks an order, how to fix the data, how the old system evolves into the new, that's what takes you to the next level. That's the difference between just being a user of the system and becoming someone who can truly architect solutions with it.